The cafe smelled like burnt sugar and damp newspapers, the kind of place you went to when you wanted the world to feel a little smaller. I had my usual corner by the window, not too close, not too far, the sunlight hitting the edge of my notebook just right. I'd been here 3 mornings in a row, mostly watching people, scribbling notes I would never send anyone. She was already there, tucked into the far booth, fingers wrapped around a chipped mug. I noticed her before I registered her face. The way she tilted her head when reading, lips slightly parted, as if she were waiting for someone to notice that she existed. She hadn't. Not really. Not yet. Latte? I said to the barista, not taking my eyes off her. The name felt like permission to keep looking. She glanced up, eyes meeting mine, and for a second, too long for it to be accidental, we held each other's gaze. She smiled, just a flicker, then turned back to her papers. My hand froze around the cup. I folded a napkin absent-mindedly, over and over, watching the crease lines form and blur. Her voice floated across the room a few minutes later when she ordered. Same as yesterday. I remembered it, not because it mattered, but because I had been listening. The loneliness I carried wasn't loud. It was in the pauses, the unsent messages, the half-finished thoughts. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number, 3 words. Check your email. I ignored it. For now. My attention returned to her. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, the motion slow, almost deliberate. She hummed softly, as if she weren't aware anyone could hear it. I noticed anyway. I wanted to say something. Anything. But I didn't. Instead, I folded my napkin one last time and set it beside my notebook. My coffee cooled. She looked up again, eyes catching mine across the room. This time she didn't look away. She gave a small, tight-lipped smile, and I swear, though it could have been a trick of the light, I saw something like recognition. I wanted to leave, to pretend I hadn't been sitting there like a shadow, but my feet stayed planted. The door chimed, letting in someone else, and suddenly she was moving, gathering her things. I tried to think of words that weren't obvious, words that didn't feel like they belonged to someone else's story. Then my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, but this one had a subject line. Check the company documents. Now. I stared at the screen, hand hovering, unsure whether to tap, unsure if I wanted to know. She glanced back once more, paused at the doorway, and then she was gone. The light shifted across the empty table she'd left behind, and for the first time that morning, I felt like the room was holding its breath, waiting for me to decide. The office smelled faintly of printer toner and old carpet, the kind of place that made you feel slightly smaller, like everything around you was measured in deadlines and fluorescent lights. I hadn't expected her to be here, the same woman from the cafe, holding a stack of files with a precision that felt almost casual. Ah, she said, glancing up when I shuffled in. You must be the new owner. Her smile was small, professional, but there was something else there, a flicker of something human beneath the courtesy. I cleared my throat. Yeah. Just trying to figure out what's mine now. My fingers drummed against the edge of the desk, a nervous habit I hadn't quite shaken. She tilted her head, studying me as if she were weighing whether I was serious. Then she said softly, almost to herself, Funny. I've been running this place for years, and nobody really noticed. Not in the way that matters. Her words caught me off guard. I wanted to ask what she meant, but I only nodded. Instead, I watched her hands arrange folders like she was performing a quiet ritual. There was a hesitancy to her movements, a subtle tension that made me think maybe she was used to being overlooked, or maybe she just didn't expect to be noticed at all. We ended up in the small break room, the kettle hissing as she poured tea. I kept my voice low, unsure where casual ended and something more personal could begin. She told me about the little things, a favorite book she reread every summer, a Sunday ritual of baking something simple, the way she liked her coffee too strong in the morning. I offered nothing but my own half-answers, gestures, and the occasional laugh that felt more like a pause in the conversation than an invitation. There was a gap between us, small but heavy, filled with things we didn't say. She mentioned her divorce lightly, a fact that should have been ordinary, but the way she spoke, careful, almost private, made it feel weighty. My mind wandered, imagining her laughing at a joke I hadn't told, wondering if she thought about me the same way I thought about her. Every scenario seemed impossible and yet painfully possible. At some point, we fell silent. The room was too warm, the tea too sweet, the clock ticking too loud. She glanced up, her eyes softening, and held my gaze just a fraction too long. I felt a pull I couldn't name. Then, as if to break the spell, she reached over and straightened my tie. Her fingers brushed my collarbone lightly, careful, almost accidental. I kept still, feeling the subtle weight of the gesture. It meant nothing on the surface, a friendly correction, but the air between us thickened, words unnecessary. I didn't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The office was quieter than usual that afternoon. Only the hum of the air conditioner and the distant tap-tap of keyboards. I was stacking files at my desk when she appeared in the doorway, holding a folder too big for her hands. "I thought you might want these," she said, voice low, almost hesitant. She leaned against the frame, and for a second, the world outside the office seemed to shrink. I nodded, fumbling for words that wouldn't sound clumsy. "Thanks." My fingers brushed the papers as I took them. "Too light." "Not enough." She lingered. The air felt different. I wanted to say something, anything, but I didn't. Instead, I stared at her hands, the way her fingers pressed against the folder, a little too tight, like she was holding herself together. Then the intercom buzzed. "Lunch delivery and reception," the voice said. Ordinary. But it broke the bubble. She flinched slightly, and I realized how fragile this quiet moment had been. Later, in the break room again, we both reached for the kettle at the same time. Our fingers touched. A spark, almost imperceptible, but enough to make my chest tighten. She pulled back immediately, a faint laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Sorry." I said nothing. My throat felt dry. I watched her stir her tea, the spoons circling in small, precise circles. I imagined it moving toward me instead, toward this unspoken possibility. But the room stayed cool, ordinary, too ordinary. I noticed the slight pause in her breath when I looked up from my notebook. She caught my eye and quickly looked away, cheeks faintly flushed. My hand hovered near hers, the tip of my fingers twitching. Could I reach out? Should I? At that moment, the office door opened. A junior assistant peeked in, looking for signatures. She straightened, like a curtain closing over a window I'd just glimpsed. I stepped back, suddenly aware of space, of the rules we hadn't spoken but were already breaking in thought. I imagined leaning closer, brushing her hair from her face, whispering something small, meaningless. But instead, she gathered her things and walked past me. Close enough that I could feel the warmth of her sleeve against my arm, close enough that I imagined what it would feel like if I didn't let go. We paused at the door. Neither of us moved first. Her lips caught the light for a fraction of a second, my eyes flicking away just in time. I swallowed. She did the same. And then she left, leaving me with the silence that carried more weight than any words could. I sat back, fingers tracing the edge of my notebook. The moment lingered, unfinished. Like a question without an answer. The park was nearly empty, late afternoon sunlight slanting across benches and the uneven path. I walked beside her, the crunch of leaves under our shoes louder than it should have been. She carried a tote with papers sticking out, not looking at me, but somehow aware I was there. "I saw him today," she said without preamble. Her voice was soft, steady, but the slight quiver betrayed her. "Who?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my stomach tightened. "My ex." She paused, letting the words hang. I didn't respond immediately, just watched a dog sniffing a tree. She kicked a stone lightly, then looked at me, eyes sharp for a moment. He noticed me. Invited me to some event. I almost. She stopped. Bit her lip. I didn't go. I wanted to say something that would make it better, something that wouldn't sound like too much, like too little. Instead, I kept my hands in my pockets, shifting my weight from one foot to the other. The silence filled the space between us, thick and uncomfortable. You always notice these things, she said quietly. Small stuff. She glanced at me, then away again, as if worried she had overstepped. Maybe, I said, trailing off. My throat was tight. I wanted to tell her that I thought about her when she laughed at things no one else saw. That I wondered what it would feel like if she leaned just a little closer, if her hand brushed mine. But I didn't. Not yet. We reached a bench. She sat first, smoothing the tote on her lap, papers perfectly aligned despite the wind tugging at the corners. I lingered beside her, hands awkwardly folded, noticing the way her fingers played with the strap. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. With him. With everything. Her eyes found mine, and for a second I saw her fully. Vulnerable. Unsure. Open in a way she hadn't been before. My heart beat too fast. I wanted to reach out, to say, I don't know what I'm supposed to do either, but I want to figure it out with you. Instead, I nodded, slowly. The words tangled somewhere in my throat. She tilted her head, watching me, as if searching for something in the spaces between my movements. Do you ever feel like you're not supposed to want something? Her hand rested on the edge of the bench. Mine twitched, hovering just above, close enough to brush if I dared. I didn't move. Didn't answer. We sat there, the wind threading between us, a dog barking far off, a leaf drifting down onto her papers. The question lingered, unspoken, hanging in the air heavier than either of us wanted to admit. Are we allowed to want this? I didn't see her for 3 days. Not in the office, not at the café where she usually lingered, fingers curled around that chipped mug. My texts went unread, and I stopped looking for signs. The quiet hope of seeing her, the small warmth it always brought, now turned sour in its absence. When she finally appeared, it was at the back door of the office, coat drawn tight, eyes a little distant. Hey, she said, voice clipped, almost cautious. She didn't smile. Didn't reach for anything. I nodded, too aware of the space she'd carved between us. Everything okay? I asked. My own words sounded too loud. She glanced away, adjusting the strap of her bag. Yeah, she said, but the pause after the words said something else entirely. Something I couldn't name. Later that afternoon I saw him. Or rather, I heard about him. Her ex had called the office, asking to speak with her. She left a message, calm, polite, but the tremor in her words, in the way she set the phone down, made me want to reach across the desk and make everything right. I didn't. I couldn't. I tried to focus on work, but everything was sharper now. The chair where she usually sat. The steam from the kettle in the break room. Her favorite mug untouched. My hands lingered over my notebook, doodles half-formed, unsent thoughts spilling over in quiet frustration. I imagined her walking past me, her coat brushing mine in the hallway. I imagined the laugh we hadn't shared yet, the small joke never made, the coffee we never finished together. My chest ached with anticipation and regret, both meaningless and absolute. Then came the email. Not from her, not to her, but about her, an HR note, something bureaucratic, cold, and personal. She was taking some time away. For reasons unexplained. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, poised to type a message I knew I wouldn't send. That night I stared at my phone. Empty screen. The one I had imagined calling her with, checking in, reaching for her, blank. And somewhere in the background, the cafe where we first noticed each other hummed in memory. I could almost see her fingers curling around the chipped mug. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. I made tea, left it to cool untouched. Sat in the dim light of my apartment, imagining her at her kitchen counter, imagining her adjusting her bag strap, imagining the moment she decided to step away, leaving everything ambiguous. I didn't knock. I didn't call. I didn't text. The chair opposite me remained empty, the room too quiet. The questions circled, unspoken, unresolved, and I waited, not for an answer, but for the story to start again, or end, or somehow shift. She was in the kitchen when I arrived, sleeves rolled up, coffee mug in hand. The sunlight fell across the counter in a way that made the dust motes float like they belonged there. I lingered in the doorway, hesitant, hands shoved into pockets, unsure if I should leave or step closer. "Hey," she said, not looking up. Just a sound, casual, but carrying weight I couldn't ignore. "Hey," I replied, voice quieter than I expected. We moved in small, careful circles, avoiding the space between us yet orbiting it. She set her mug down, fingertips brushing the edge, and I noticed how her nails caught the light, faintly chipped. My hands itched to reach out, not to take, not to claim, just to be near. "I thought about what you said," I began. My voice faltered, trailing off. She glanced at me, head tilted, waiting, but not pressing. That pause held everything I hadn't said for weeks. "I don't know what I want exactly," she admitted, a whisper, eyes on the counter. "I just know. I don't want to regret not saying anything." I nodded slowly, letting the words sink. "I feel the same," I said. The sentence was simple, bare. No flourish. No promise. But it carried all the tension of unsent texts, unspoken questions, and the days we spent apart. She looked up then. Our eyes met, and I thought I saw everything: uncertainty, fear, hope, laid bare, fragile and honest. She shifted slightly, and I shifted too, a step closer, but not too close. Respecting the invisible line we'd been dancing around for weeks. "I'm scared," she confessed, voice barely audible. "Scared it could all fall apart. Or that it already has." I didn't reach for her. Not yet. Instead, I let the silence stretch, letting her words breathe. Then, slowly, I held out my hand. Not dramatic, not demanding. Just a hand, palm open, waiting. She glanced at it, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips, and finally, her fingers brushed mine. A soft connection. Light, fleeting, but enough. Enough to acknowledge the risk. Enough to say, "We're here. Right now. That's what matters." "Okay," she said softly, as if testing the sound, testing the moment, testing me. "Okay," I replied. The coffee cooled on the counter. The sunlight shifted. We didn't need more words. We didn't need grand declarations. We simply existed in that shared space, hesitant, human, imperfect, and it was enough. Weeks passed, or maybe months. I stopped counting. The office settled into its usual rhythm, and the café retained its burnt sugar smell, like it had always been waiting for us. Some mornings, I would still pause at 8:47 a.m., just long enough to imagine her crossing the street, coffee in hand, hair loose in the sunlight. And sometimes she appeared, smiling softly, nodding, letting the quiet familiarity settle between us. We found our routines again. Lunch breaks with mismatched teacups. Shared files and quiet conversations in the break room. Sometimes, our knees brushed under the table, and neither of us flinched. That small contact, insignificant to anyone else, was a lifeline we both clung to, wordlessly. One Sunday, we sat on the same park bench where she had confessed her fear of wanting something. The autumn leaves had fallen, crunching under our shoes, the air crisp and unremarkable. She handed me a thermos of black coffee. I carried it like a gift, not because it was hot, but because she had thought of it. I stirred my cup slowly, watched her fingers hover over hers, and felt the quiet peace of someone finally seeing me, the way she always had, now without hesitation, without distance. There were still moments of tension, of unspoken doubts. A glance that lingered a beat too long. A missed text. But they were small ripples now, no longer storms. We learned to navigate them, to sit in the silence and let it speak. I caught myself smiling at the little things, the chipped mug she always used, the way she hummed softly while making tea, the soft crinkle at the corners of her eyes when she laughed. These were the anchors that kept me grounded, that reminded me this wasn't a story about dramatic declarations or perfect timing. It was about the quiet accumulation of trust, of understanding, of gentle constancy. One evening, as the light faded across the office windows, she leaned back in her chair and said nothing. I didn't either. We just shared a glance, one that carried 1,000 tiny acknowledgments, past mistakes, near misses, and the slow, careful love that had grown in the spaces in between. And in that silence I realized, it wasn't about grand gestures or final words. It was about being here, together, without needing more than that. She smiled, just a little, almost shyly. I nodded. That small, shared moment said everything we didn't need to say out loud. We walked out together into the ordinary world, the streetlights casting long shadows, the air filled with the quiet hum of life. Not perfect, never perfect, but ours. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?